A second ship for 2 days in a row had its mooring lines snapped while at port. But the guest experience on one of these ships will shock you.
JJ Cruise.
Hey everyone, what's up? This is Jordan with JJ Cruise. Thank you so much for clicking into the video today. Well, we have another ship that had its lines snapped while it was docked at a port. And we're going to talk about both incidents, but I'm going to focus really on one of the guest experience because one of these ships, the guest experience is just really shocking. Before I get into all of this information, I do just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. This is JJ Cruise. We do all things cruising all the time, so if you love cruising as much as we do, please hit that subscribe button. And if you like videos like this and more information about the cruise industry, please go ahead and also hit that thumbs up. At this point, you probably already heard that the NCL Escape was docked in Sicily a couple of days ago when its mooring lines snapped. It had 4 lines that broke, causing the ship to move away from land, and there was people actively boarding on the gangway during this time. One of the women fell into the water and her husband jumped in the water after her. She hit her head. It was reported that she had very minimal injuries, but she was taken to the hospital just to be safe and get checked out. A second ship has now had its mooring line snapped. The MSC Seaside was docked in the Bahamas at Ocean Key when the lines snapped due to a large gust of wind that caused, again, the gangway to fall into the water. Now, thankfully, in this particular scenario, there was no one actively getting on the ship at the time that this happened. So there was no guests that were injured or fell into the water. Although I did hear that a couple of people had to get into the water to get that gangway back out up onto land. What I want to focus on in this video, though, is the guest experience and a little bit of an update for you on what happened on that NCL Escape ship. Because what happened and how the cruise line has handled this is pretty shocking. Now, it is Norwegian Cruise Line, and you hear us talk about Norwegian in a variety of ways here on the channel. And so maybe this experience will not shock you, but there has been a lot of guests that have now spoken out online about what the experience was like over in Sicily just a couple of days ago. This whole situation is being described as an epic failure, and there are guests that are saying that all hell broke loose due to these mooring lines breaking. Around 1:30 p.m., when the lines broke, no one really knew what was going on. There was about 15 to 20 people that made it past security on land and were there on the dock about to board the ship when the lines broke. And of course, they were pushed back and told that they needed to wait because they didn't know what was going to happen next. There was then hundreds of people that were pouring back into the security area before they got actually into the dock that were just waiting and waiting for hours with no information and had no idea what was going on. These guests waited a total of 7 hours with very minimal communication from the cruise line as to when the ship would be back, if they would have to leave that particular port or go meet the ship at another port, and what time they would be getting on the ship. They also didn't know what was going to happen to the rest of their cruise. The next day, they were supposed to go to Naples. So people had a lot of independent tours. They had a lot of tours through the cruise line. And there was really no information about what was going to happen for the rest of their cruise or really the rest of their day there in Sicily. According to multiple guest experiences on board the NCL Epic, passengers got extremely upset waiting there at the pier because, once again, the zero communication does not help when there is a crisis or a massive change that is unfolding in front of your eyes. Now, of course, no one on the NCL Epic could have predicted this happening. They actually, in a letter to all guests, have described this as an act of God. An act of God meaning this was a completely unforeseen act of nature that no one could have seen coming. And because it was a gust of wind at about 60 miles per hour, it came out of nowhere and broke the lines just like that. I think the most shocking thing that I'm hearing from the guests on board that ship, though, was the boarding process. When they were ready to have people board, there were several thousand people there at the pier. The crew came out of the ship to start boarding people, And all of a sudden, some signs went up on paddles that said Haven guests. They were going to attempt, amongst the thousands of people spread all over the pier, to get every single Haven guest on board first before they let the rest of the guests board. Now, keep in mind, some of these people have been standing there for 7 hours and were just wanting to get back on the ship. It got really ugly really fast when those Haven signs went up and they said the suite guests are going to be the first to get back on the ship. And, well, people kind of revolted, from what I understand, against those signs. There was a lot of pushing, a lot of shoving, allegedly, a lot of swearing and strong language being used. And people started to just kind of push their way forward towards the gangway to start getting back on the ship. There's a big argument on Facebook right now between guests on that ship that are going back and forth, arguing that yes, the Haven guests, the suite guests pay so much more money, they should have had priority boarding, or no, it should have just been, let's get everyone back on the ship as fast as we can so we can get out of here and possibly get back to our next port. The big problem here, and what everyone has collectively said, is that NCL had no contingency plan for anything like this happening in place. So if there was ever an emergency on land or an emergency on the ship where the ship had to leave land early, which that has happened before in other ports and with other cruise lines, there was really no texts that were being sent out, no updates in the app, no information at all from the captain, from the cruise line, from the corporate office, and people were just stuck, left there not knowing if they could leave. I think people were just a little bit afraid, and it makes total sense, especially if it's one of your first time in Europe. You're not going to know what to do. Should you go? Do you know what time you should come back? Do you risk getting left there? For anyone that did get left there, it would have been a ferry boat over to the main island, because again, they were in Sicily, to meet the ship in Naples. However, after still no communication once back on board the ship did not get to Naples today. They didn't get to go to their final port, and that was because, of course, the ship left so late in Sicily. Because NCL claims that this is an act of God, there really isn't a lot of compensation that comes with that. But they did give everyone $100 onboard credit per stateroom. So if there's 2 people in your stateroom, you each got $50. If there's 4 people in your stateroom, you each got $25. And they had a bonus sea day at the very end of their trip instead of getting to go see Naples. Of course, NCL cannot be blamed for an act of God or a freak weather accident that happens while your ship is docked at a pier. But I think NCL can be blamed for the lack of communication. There should be emergency plans in place when things go wrong for cruisers, especially when you are taking 5,000 or 6,000 people into a place in another country. You better have a way to communicate to those people if something ever goes wrong. I know a lot of those people would have really appreciated a text or a message on an app stating that, hey, it's going to be 5, 6, 7 hours before we're going to be able to get you back on board the ship. So go back out and enjoy your time in Sicily. Go grab a drink, get an Aperol Spritz, have a slice of pizza, have a pasta, go do your thing, and then come back around 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and we'll get you back on board safely, and we will get going to wherever our next stop is. I do think this is a very poor reflection for Norwegian. I've seen people saying that they are going to file lawsuits against the cruise line because of this experience, that this experience was super traumatic. And there is someone that shared their video on Facebook. We'll go ahead and link over to that profile below so you can see a firsthand account of someone that was actually stuck there at the pier for 7 hours. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I don't think that this is a good look for Norwegian, and of course, I feel very bad for everyone that happened to, and I feel bad for the MSC passengers that happened to in the Bahamas just a little bit ago. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget, the next time your captain skips a port due to weather, just be thankful that you don't have to go through a situation like this. That is it for today. My name is Jordan. This is JJ Cruise, and until next time, see ya.